I was delighted when Gregory James, my friend in the front row here, called me a couple of weeks ago to ask to speak at this event. For the mere fact that I think it's an absolute privilege and honor to be here and share the stage with so many wonderful and amazing people. Over the past few weeks, a couple of things have happened to me. One was I lost my grandmother, the lady together with my grandfather that basically raised me. And then also the death of Solly Tebelika. Now, most of you might not know who he is. I played with Solly for the Springboks as well as for the Lions. And he suffered quite a horrific death. But I was at his memorial service, and one thing struck me, and I realized that that could have so easily been me. Now, what was the difference? And the reason why I thought that could have been me, I think that's the reason why I have to go back to the beginning. And the beginning for me really was that year in grade 5, back still standard 3, I get confused with the grades and the standards. So standard 3 as an 11-year-old boy or 10-year-old boy sitting there in the classroom. And the teacher walked into class, and I won't mention a few names, but just forget about the names. They sort of remind me of the stories over the years. And the teacher, Mr. Wallace, came into the classroom, and he asked a question. He said, "What would you want to become one day?" So my surname being W, we went alphabetically, so ultimately, eventually, it got to me. So today, I don't know what any of the other guys said, but I got up and I said to him, and this was influenced by my childhood hero, Frankie Fredericks, at the time. And I said, I want to be an Olympic gold medalist. So it wasn't really that funny because I was brilliant at athletics. I was phenomenal. I was a high jumper, I was a long jumper, I was a sprinter, and I just have the gift of sport. And I realized that since a very early age, I was academically challenged. And sport-wise, I was gifted. And it wasn't that funny at the time. But so the reason why I talk about that story is because that coming weekend, we had our school athletics meeting, and at the athletics meeting, there was a guy by the name of Arnold Salier. Now, Arnold Salier was my primary school rival. And we were the same age, best friends at the time. We did exactly the same events. I don't know why I chose my event. So that was then the event. And it so happened on that weekend, after I've just stated publicly in the classroom that I won a World Olympic gold medal, that Arnold kicked my butt. And I came second in all those events. We did the 60 meters, the 80 meters, high jump, and long jump. And that was also nothing, but the Monday, in the classroom, Mr. Wallace came in, we were all sitting, and we said our prayers and everything, sitting down, so he's turning around and writing the date on the board. And when he looked back, there was a guy in the class, and his name was Nico. Nico was sitting like this with his hand up. Now, Nico is as insignificant as a fart in the wind. His only significance his only relevance in the story is because I call it the Nico syndrome. And as sports people and people in general, I think we all have, or we all encounter a Nico one way or another in our lives. Nico said, "Sir, I feel it's extremely disturbing that here's a gentleman in this classroom that claimed that he's going to win an Olympic gold medal. And on the weekend, he just lost to Arnold Salier, and nobody's saying a word about it." And I was sitting there, now imagine here, a 10-year-old boy in the classroom with this idiot who was really insignificant, giving his opinion. And at that time, it meant nothing, but as I got older, I look back at that moment, and it actually stands out for me. And the reason why it does, because it has the ability to crush you as an individual. It could have destroyed my life. It did not. I chose not to have my life be destroyed by that moment. But some guys are not that lucky. And I think I don't even blame Nico. And I can't blame him because, unfortunately, the situation was as such. Where we grew up, you were confined to thinking and believing that you are not supposed to amount to anything. You are not supposed to become anything. You are limited to the boundaries and the walls of the school and the boundaries of the town. Your imagination cannot go beyond what you are known to. It cannot go beyond the gangs, the drugs, and the violence that exist in your immediate environment. We have no dreams because our dreams and our hopes are being crushed by the realities of what we face in our everyday life. So therefore, I do not blame the insignificant Nico for having thought that way, but it is a reality. And ultimately, I moved on, and Nico was so out of it. And then I graduated to high school. And now I've just skipped my entire primary school focusing on Nico. But going into high school and graduating, going to high school, I met my first ever mentor in my schooling career, a gentleman by the name of Andre De Brain. Andre De Brain was a teacher in my English. He was my English teacher and also the coach at high school. When I got to grade 8, standard 6, I had already established myself as a sportsman, a wonderful, gifted sportsman, and a great rugby player. And there I was taken in by Andre into his class and also into the rugby squad. Andre soon realized that I'm a special case and I need a lot of attention, because having grown up fatherless, without a father, not having a mentor, I was bound to fall victim to one of other mischief somewhere along the line. I did, however, perform during the school hours. I was wonderful at the training field, but we had this demon on the side, which is called gangsterism and drugs, that was also opening avenues for me. Now, I think back then I was the exact type of youngster that these guys preyed on. I was without a father. I come from a broken home, was raised by my grandparents who was extremely religious and went to church, and really didn't have enough time to focus on me because there were so many kids in the house. So in daytime, I was this phenomenal athlete, great student, and at nighttime, I was running the streets as a drug dealer and a gangster. Eventually, it led to me becoming my biggest client. That's confusing because I was so hooked on drugs that I couldn't sell them anymore. I was using them too much. And the one thing led to another. And I think what was significant for me about that time was the fact that I had a friend, and his name is Dominic. We called him Tupac because he resembled Tupac. And Dominic's story is a phenomenal one because he had the same sporting talent, but he had a tragic ending where at the age of 21, he walked across the street to his girlfriend, who then left him for about a few months. He separated from him because of his lifestyle. And they had a little boy together. And he walked across the street, pulled out a handgun, blew her brains out, then turned the gun on himself. And this is a true story. And there was Kenny. Kenny was a guy I grew up with, the same thing. We were staying in the house. I went to training, believe it or not, the evening. And the next day, a policeman by the name of Linston Manuel came to my house to come and take me in for questioning. The reason for that was 30 minutes after I've left, another gang came and they opened up fire on the house, and they killed Kenny and 2 other gang members in the house where I just left 30 minutes ago. Now, Linston Manuel turned out to be a professional referee. I know there's fellow rugby colleagues of mine in the audience, and they are aware of it. And how funny, because later on in my life, he refereed one of the games that I played in. And then, as that whole story unfolded, I think the fact that my cousin was raped by 4 of my fellow gang members was also something that as a child back then, I didn't really see and understand. But as you go older, get older, or as I got older, the most significant day in my life was the day when Brayton Porter came to my school. And there I was, 17 years old, playing rugby at the highest level, at the school level at that stage, and really just being a juvenile delinquent, drug addict, drug dealer, and had no future. Sitting at the back of the school hall with this guy, Brayton, who I adored, totally loved at the time, and believed that he was just my hero, came to our school and he addressed us. And afterwards, I was introduced to him by my late rugby coach, Mr. Benjamin, who was a sports coordinator. And he said to Brayton who I was. I've just made the team, the Craven Week team, and unfortunately, I have nothing. So if Brayton wouldn't mind sharing a few things. He said, no need to worry. A few days later, a bag arrived. Now in the bag was boots, there was training kit, etc. that Brayton then sent, and also he sent a few bucks as well. And I had a raffle, I still recall I had a raffle, and that raffle got money in from that raffle. But before I went on Craven Week that year, I decided this is the end of it all. I will stop this life of gangs and drugs and violence, and I'm going to pursue this rugby thing. So I took all that money, paid all of my drug debt, and then I went to Craven Week. Now, maybe that's nothing, but the beauty about it is that 4 years later, and there's a man in the audience, Dale Santon, in 2003, myself and Dale before I even get there, I joined the Boland Rugby Union at the age of 18 in 1999. And I joined the training camp, and Dale was part of the training camp. And it's funny he's here in the audience because he still remembers me as this boy that came with 2 plastic bags, got out of a taxi with a pair of shorts on and a t-shirt and all this zombie tattoos, and he called me Nongi. Now, Nongi is Nongoloz for some gangster language, so Dale then called me that. And it's funny how in 2003, there I was, and I made the South African team for the first time, and later on went to the World Cup, myself and Dale being teammates at the time during that World Cup. But what is significant about it is at that time, I replaced none other than Brayton Paulse in the Springbok team.
Wow.
And
wow.
Thank you. And the beauty about the whole story is that the following year, 2003, that's now after I've won Player of the Year, Players Player of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, an international award, IRB nominee. You may clap for that as well, please. But the beautiful part of this all is when in 2004 I played and Jake White came in and he was the new coach, and we went on the Grand Slam tour, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and then also Argentina at the end of the year. And the second test match was Ireland. And then we played Ireland. I played on the number 11, and Brayton Paulse played on number 14 on the other wing, left wing, right wing. Played in the game, and at the end of the game, I went into the change room. I said, Brayton, because we get 2 jerseys, one you can swap with the opposition, and the other one you keep. So I walked up to him and I said, Brayton, please, would you be so kind, because it was his 50th test match, and on the jersey was his name written and 50 tests underneath. I said, would you be so kind to please swap your jersey with mine so that you can go and then swap mine with the others? And he was a bit shocked but as to why would I want his. And I said to him, there was a day back in 1999 when you came to Caledon and you spoke at a school. There was a boy who you sent a bag for. That boy is me. Brayton didn't know it was the same boy standing in front of him. And today, if I look back on my life, I realize that in many ways, I'm no better than most of the names that I've mentioned. It's just that I had better people coming my way. By some stroke of luck, I was on the path where people crossed my way that mattered and then assisted me to become more. Now, I might have never won an Olympic gold medal, but in 2007, I was part of a squad that won a gold medal at the Rugby World Cup as being crowned the world champions at the World Cup in France. And
brilliant.
And I think at the end, when I retired and hung up my boots, many people thought what was going to happen to Ashwin. And it's funny because I myself didn't know. But as I stand here today and I reflect and I look back on my life, I think the one thing that stands out for me most is the fact that a couple of days ago, in fact, my daughter, 8 years old, beauty, wonderful kid, she looked at me and said, Dad, because she was reading something, and she asked me, Dad, tell me, is there life beyond death? And I'm looking at this child and I'm thinking like, what? Is there life beyond death? And I thought about it, and I said, you know what, to be quite honest, I have no idea. I don't know. You know, I really don't know. I mean, I would lie to you if I say yes or no. But today, I think, had the question be from her, Dad, is there life beyond sport? I'd have looked her in the eye, and without a single doubt, I would have said, yes, my dear, indeed. There is life beyond sport. I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done.
We have so many things that we can talk about, and I know that we began our conversation. I just know that Ashwin and I are kindred spirits, and we share a very similar story. And we both agree that it's not a coincidence that we would run into each other, and there's a reason why. And I know that we're going to continue to build on our conversation, but to hear your story of triumph, and like I said, circumstances never dictate someone's destiny. And we can rise above anything, but we have to have in our midst a network of people who believe in us and inject hope. Because if you have people simply injecting despair, you believe that's all there is for you. And you had those people come right at the right time, and your ears were open. And I think it's because you always knew that despair was not your destiny. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Appreciate that.